Hello, everyone. This is Deb McBride, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. Today is Sunday, the 24th of May, and it is a beautiful evening in Costa Rica, where I just saw a very lovely sunset. And in the United States, it is Memorial Day weekend, and happy Memorial Day holiday weekend to anyone who is living in the U.S. and listening. So, we just had a new moon on Friday. And what's important about this new moon, there's lots of things important about this. The moon, up until a couple of hours ago, actually just an hour ago from when I am recording this, the moon has been in Gemini since Friday, and it left and went into Cancer an hour ago. It's been void most of today. And if you are someone who is prone to mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, you are someone who may be feeling a lot of this Gemini energy, because up until an hour ago, we had 4 planets in Gemini. So the new moon kicked it off on Friday, and it's been a very mercurial time. Information, lots of connection, networking, ideas, and this is very important. And even though the moon has moved on, because moon only sticks around for 2.5 days, there's still Mercury and Venus and the Sun and the North Node in the sign of Gemini. And so Gemini is the communicator of the zodiac. It's the one that says I know, or I think, and collects information and shares information. And if anything is very information oriented or opinion oriented, there's a lot of Gemini. So what I think is happening is there are all sorts of ideas and narratives and chatter and talk and busy brain. You're going to get busy brain now. So if you're having a little trouble sleeping, it might be busy brain. It'd be good to calm your brain, calm your mind at this time. But what's really happening is that there's a lot of opinions flying around. And especially right now, there's lots and lots of opinions of what's going on, who's ruling what, who is right, who's wrong, and what's really going on behind the surface, behind the scenes, under the surface, behind the scenes, in that we're not being told, or being told or not being told. And so the nodes a few weeks ago changed signs. North Node in Gemini, South Node in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is the philosopher, the guru, the lawyer, the publisher. And Gemini's like sort of the informer. They're opposite signs. And North Node is where we are focusing our energy, because it's where we are going toward fulfillment. Now, that being said, Gemini is a very busy little bee. And right now it's very, very busy. And there's lots of information flying around, and people are listening to, different, I think, on YouTube and various social medias and all. There are people who have very strong opinions about what's being told to the masses. I understand this, especially at this time with so much information flying around. And so it's good to question. It's good to be curious. It's good to be informed. However, do not let this distract you, because, there is a lot that we clearly don't know about the science of what's going on in our world, and the the medical science of what's going on in our world. And there's a lot that we don't know about the political aspects of this. And so what you have to do is focus on what is important to you in your life, and what's important in your life, your contribution to the world. And The South Node in Sagittarius can be very much, I'm listening to this guy because he's got the answers and he's the right teacher and he knows. And I don't think anybody has the right answer. And it is up to us individually to maintain our own clarity and opinion without getting overwhelmed by details, information, and who we think is the right teacher during this time. Now, the most important thing at any time, during a pandemic, no pandemic, war, no war, election, no election, whatever. The most important thing is love, and and love comes from your heart, and the most important thing for you is to stay in your heart. You can get carried away by information, go against the current, with the current, whatever, and listen to the narrative or not listen to narrative. It's up to you. But the most important thing is love. And the most important thing is to stay in your heart and not get caught up in revolution. It's going to come soon enough when Pluto moves into Aquarius in a few years. So the most important thing is your heart and what your heart is telling you. So now, last week I did an Instagram video and I was talking about how our brain is full of information. And right now, with all this Gemini energy that we have, our brain is lots of information and lots of opinions, lots of voices in the brain. Should I listen to them? Should I not listen to them? Should I listen to this video? Well, this person says this and this person says that. And if you do that, you're going to be distracted and you are not going to get done what you need to get done right now. Now, the mainstream thing that all of us need to do is go within and change our lives. So this is okay. It doesn't matter why or how. There is a new era coming because Saturn Pluto generally speaks of a new era. It's the archetype of new era. And Jupiter Pluto is helping us create a new era in our own lives. So whatever you need to do for your life, if you want to go out and teach, if you want to go out and learn, if you want, and those are both Gemini Sagittarius things, if you want to do something new, you have to go with what's in your heart. Maybe you've had a plan for a while and you have not been able to enforce that plan. Right now is the time to go out and put that plan into action. What are you waiting for? Life is short. So in my Instagram video last week, and you can find it on YouTube as well, it's, I showed a picture of the brain, and then I showed, I talked about the brain, and then I showed a picture of a brain under Venus retrograde because Venus is retrograde in Gemini. So lots of opinions and lots of things and people taking stances and blah, blah, blah. But Venus is also, since before Venus went retrograde, since the 3rd of May, Venus has been squaring Neptune. And Venus and Neptune create a lot of confusion, especially when the Venus is in Gemini. So we're not getting a clear picture, and people, okay, good. It's good to question things. Great. You don't take things at face value. But Venus and Neptune are in square, and that means that there's a lot of lack of clarity going on in the world right now and in your personal life. So Venus squared Neptune again on the 20th, which was Wednesday. Now, the trick about this is this Venus didn't just square Neptune, go away, square Neptune again. The orb of influence is what we use in astrology is the distance between the two planets. That's the exact square on May 3rd and then again on May 20th, 17 days later. That's not the roundabout Venus ran around the zodiac and came back. This is all this time, all these weeks, Venus has essentially been squaring Neptune. So in my video on Instagram and YouTube, I've got this, I'm showing what's going on in your brain, and then I turn the brain upside down and I explain that right now is a very confusing time. But the clarity is going to come from your heart. And so that's where we have to pay attention to where our heart is right now. Oh, if you're alone and you're not with a partner, or you don't have kids to take care of and stuff, and you're self-isolating and all, yeah, you're going to go online and you're going to get like full of ideas right now. And it's very easy to do that with all this Gemini energy flying around. But this week it's going to start to calm down a bit, because on Thursday the 28th, Mercury is going to move into the sign of Cancer and will no longer be ruling the heavens in its own sign. So and then things are going to get a little warmer and fuzzier, because Mercury is now in Cancer. And all the planets that are in Gemini are going to answer to Mercury, which is in Cancer. And so what we have to do is start to pay attention to what's happening in the sign of Cancer, as Cancer is, the sign of, the home and the family and our emotions and our feelings. And those things are really, very important, because that's where we really have the feelings. And what's most important here is how we feel. And that if you want a new life that we're all asking for right now, then you've got to feel it. You've got to feel that life. You can't just go, oh, I'd love to do this, and just sort of wonder about it. You've got to put yourself in that place. You've got to feel the energy of what it's going to feel like to be in that place, and surround yourself with the energy of that. Not, focus on which narrative you believe in or not. You got to change your life. We all have to change our lives right now. We have work to do. And so getting stuck in these, Geminian parameters it's a little hard. Use the Gemini energy to, decipher what comes next for you, and give some thought to the narrative in your own life, and what is it telling you. You want to be at the forefront of something. Maybe you want to be doing something that's your life purpose, and you haven't really worked with it before. You have to own that, and you have to work with that energy and not allow yourself to get distracted. It's really easy to get distracted right now. There's a lot of stuff to watch, and there's always a lot of stuff to watch. And when there is something to focus on and what's going on behind the scenes, there's always something to focus on. But the most important focus is you and your life and your heart and what your heart wants right now. So this is where we've got to go. And why is this important? Because we just entered the eclipse period. And let me tell you, when the new moon happened on Friday was a weird day. It started off really good, but I got a lot of stories and this is personal stories, and this is not big, collective stories. This is what's going on in people's lives, people getting, sort of the shaft on some levels, people getting fired, people getting, people quitting. And it's been something very, very intense for a lot of people right now, and people are hurting. And that's what's important. What's going on for you in your life? And the energy started off okay on Friday, and I made this really nice video, and then I started to notice that things were shifting and changing, and it was hard for people. And here we are again. Gemini talks and talks and talks, and people have to listen to what they're saying to each other. Because I've had people tell me, yeah, my client was really nasty to me, and my this person was really nasty to me, and we don't understand it. And hey, you know what? If everybody's in a crisis, we all got to think before we speak. And that's another good part of Gemini. We've got to think before we speak. So before you say something to someone, remember that their life is being affected by this too. And if you've got people, like, why isn't it ready? Why isn't it done? Why is it, this is not reasonable at this time. So we entered the eclipse period. We're going to have 3 eclipses. And eclipses bring strong energy to the table, to the fore. And we have to pay attention. Once the lunation prior to the first eclipse occurs, then we know that the door has swung open and the eclipses are going to start. The energy of the eclipses is starting. And So Friday we had a new moon in Gemini, and that early part of Gemini is where Venus will turn around and go direct later in June. But what's going to happen here is we've got an eclipse on the 5th of June, and it's a full moon, so it's a lunar eclipse, and it's at 15 Sagittarius and 15 Gemini. So the moon will be in Sagittarius and the sun will be in Gemini. If you have these signs in your chart, you are good to pay attention right now. Since we've entered the eclipse period, emotions are going to run higher. And since Venus has been talking to Neptune and things have not been clear, we're trying to get some clarity during all of this. And now Venus is going to move away from Neptune for a while. She's now moving, but still with an orb. She's still close. So don't believe everything you hear. Don't throw all of your opinions in one pool. Venus is still very much close to Neptune in that aspect, and it's going to take a little while for her to move away from that. There's still a lot of lack of clarity. There's a lot of things we don't know, and we are living in the wild unknown. So you have to rest your awareness in the unknown, because you have to put trust in something in your life. Maybe you believe in something very strongly. Sagittarius is beliefs also. So the South Node in Sagittarius, we can come from our beliefs and form our opinions. North Node in Gemini. But what's going to happen is the eclipse is going to occur in these signs. And the North Node's in Gemini, but the eclipse is at the South Node. So the moon is going to be at the South Node. Usually means we're saying goodbye to something, or we're letting go of something in our lives. And that may be something that we all have to deal with. I suggest we all start paying attention to our own lives right now and not what's on YouTube. And, it's important. Find that Gemini house and look at what's going on. For me, it's my career house. I have to pay attention to my reputation and to my career. So maybe for you, it's the same. Maybe it's your health house. But you need to pay attention to that Gemini house. The eclipses are going to usher in a whole other dynamic. They always do. If you have something that you must deal with right now, if you have not dealt with emotional issues in your life, relationships, people, narratives, whatever, work situations, conundrums, then you need to deal with them. And if you don't start working with this, usually during eclipses, they bring them up in your face. So an eclipse this eclipse that's coming up on June 5th, which is going to be a minute away, is really telling us that we need to pay attention, especially to our relationships right now. So a lunar eclipse is the sun and the moon in opposition because it's a full moon. But this one isn't alone. See, Venus will be at the North Node. So you think, oh, that's nice. Venus is at the North Node. Yes, on one level, that's good. On the other hand, the moon is going to be in opposition to Venus on the South Node. So the goddesses are arguing. The goddesses will be arguing. So as we move closer and closer to June 5th, we're going to start seeing, maybe women start to argue. Maybe women start to fight with each other. Maybe people have fights with women. Maybe women will rise up right now and start to speak their minds. Great. But remember, things get heated during eclipses. And so there's one eclipse on June 5th. There's another eclipse on June 20th. And then there's another eclipse on July 5th. Okay, so this is a heated time, and 2 weeks after the eclipse on July 5th, which is about the 19th or so, when we go into July, the 20th, that's the new moon on the 20th. That is where the new moon at the really the end of Cancer, that new moon is going to be opposing, Pluto. But before we get to that new moon is what kicks out the eclipse period. So we've got weeks of intense aspects ahead of us. And this coming week, this is a pretty mild week we've got ahead. Mercury is going to move into Cancer, like I said. It's really the only planet changing signs except for the moon, which is always changing signs. Mercury will it's whizzed through Gemini. It'll finish up its tour of Gemini. And Thursday, it will give us that, it'll go into Cancer, and that's where it's going to hang out for a while because it's going to do a retrograde. But more on that at another time. What we have to start doing is paying attention to our emotions, paying attention to our feelings, paying attention to our relationships. Now, I said that Venus is going to be at the north node of the eclipse. The moon will be at the south node. The Venus and the sun will be at the north node. How nice. But in between are Mars and Neptune. So now Venus is talking to Neptune, and Mars is going to talk to Neptune because Mars is in Pisces. And Mars and Neptune are very strange when they get together because Mars is an assertive planet, and it's in a non-assertive sign. It's in a sign that goes through the back door. So there's often with Mars in Pisces, there's often like some backstabbing. And so we have to create an awareness of this in our own lives. Mars-Neptune squares the eclipse points, and we need to work through our relationship stuff in these weeks. Relationship with self, most importantly, because whatever's happening externally in your world is reflecting what's going on internally for yourself. And so you need to look at your own life, your own experiences, your own relationships, your relationship with yourself, and use them as a mirror. And Mars and Neptune, Mars in the middle of an eclipse, woof, that's powerful. So we've got some real interesting dynamics going on. And Venus is going to move backwards and not really talk to Neptune as closely. But once we get into that eclipse next month, we are going to feel the effects of, the dogs are barking, we'll feel the effects of how Mars and Venus and Neptune can cloud our judgment in relationships, and how we need to be as clear as possible and get that clarity for ourselves. Of course, I always recommend meditating because, if you're tuning into your heart and you're tuning into your soul, that's not going to lie to you, but you have to be clear. You can't think, oh, my heart's telling me this. And it's really just like your hopes and wishes and fears and anxieties and dreams, and maybe it's not really the truth. We've got to find the truth in these next couple of weeks. And even though the South Node's in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is a very truthful oriented sign, we need to be very careful and very aware where we put our energy in these next weeks. And my advice is to really, do some self-study and not allow the outside world to influence you so much, to really tune into yourself and work with yourself and what is happening in your own life and how you want it to change. And eclipses bring emotions to the table. So, as I mentioned before, if you need to have a serious conversation with someone, June 5th is not the time to do it. Try to do it now, because emotions get higher and people get offended more easily, and words are going to be thrown around very easily because of all the energy in Gemini. Venus is still going to be there. The sun will be there. The north node will be there. And it's, the sun is getting highlighted. This eclipse is, going to highlight, Gemini. So we are going to desperately need our own clarity in these next weeks. And it's so important to tune in and find that clarity. Journaling's a great thing to do now. Meditating's a great thing to do now. Studying's a great thing to do now. If you do have a favorite teacher you like to watch, great, as long as you know that their heart is in the right place and they're not trying to stir up a fervor about the mainstream narrative. There's going to be a lot of collective intensity going on because Neptune's in that eclipse, and Neptune is a collective planet. But once again, as I've mentioned before, and remember the Mercury retrograde back in February, is it the truth? Is it not the truth? Do we know what the truth is? Do we understand the truth? And right now, it's just continuing, because of Venus's relationship to Neptune, and the eclipse's relationship to Neptune, and Mars and its upcoming relationship to Neptune. So the thing we're aiming for with that North Node in Gemini is clarity, thinking clearly, not being overly influenced, finding our own clarity, our own truth, our own ideas, and listening to our own heart. And that's what's really important right now. In the meantime, this week, the moon is in Cancer. Tomorrow, Tuesday, it will go void at 9:06 p.m., the 26th Tuesday at Eastern time. And, it will stay void just a few hours, and it'll go into Leo in the middle of the night Eastern time. And Leo is where the moon is on Wednesday and Thursday, except that Thursday, it doesn't stay along regularly in Leo. It does go void 9:30 in the morning Eastern time on Thursday. So, and that's 7:30 in the morning for me. So very early, and it's going to be void all day Thursday. So it doesn't go out of void until Friday, 7:40 a.m. So it's really an almost 24-hour void, and that's all Eastern time. So it goes into Virgo on Friday, and so we'll get some things done on Friday because it's a productive moon. But, it's going to be void most of Thursday. So use that day for your tasks, your laundry list, your grocery shopping, your things that you need to do that you got to do. And don't come up with any genius ideas on Thursday. Just relax, enjoy that Leo moon, because Leo is a friendly moon, and it's where we party, it's where we get together, it's where we, if you can do like a group gathering on Zoom or something, think about, how you'd like to spend time with people and stuff, and going forward as things open up, how you want to spend time. But Thursday's, void, so don't expect much to get accomplished on Thursday. Just do what you got to do. And eclipses do not need to be bad. Eclipses are energy, and that's, not this Friday, but the following Friday, and we're going to feel the energy heat up. You have the power to change things in your life. You have the power to focus on the right things. Use it. That's what it's there for you to use it, and not to necessarily let other people tell you what's really going on or what to think. Saturday, the moon is in Virgo. Sunday, the 31st, the last day of May, a week from today, it's going to be in Virgo, go void at 5 a.m. or so Eastern time, and then go into Libra at 10:38 a.m. So Eastern time, it will be in Libra most of Sunday. So that's pleasant. But, we're just, the rest of this week is really just lunar aspects and Mercury changing signs. And Mercury is going to have a little dance with Jupiter on Tuesday. But really, this is a time to make up your mind and prepare yourself for what you really want to be doing. And if you haven't done that yet, now's the time. Eclipses tend to force our hand a little bit. What can you get rid of in your life that's unnecessary? Because it's a South Node eclipse. What can you get rid of? What can you, if you haven't been shifting and changing your life since a while, it's time to look at those things. And we've got these are the first eclipses. We've got those last eclipses we had. They were with Saturn and Pluto back in January. And so that was a big deal. So what have you been doing since January? And remember, Saturn and Pluto opened the door to this whole global situation. And so you have to think about your place in this and how it affects you personally, and what ideas you have for your new life, and get excited about it. And look for the clarity in your heart. That's the best place to go right now, is your heart. And that's about it for this week. My name is Deb McBride. I have a website, thegoldenastrologer.com. My Instagram is The Golden Astrologer, where I've been making a lot of videos about the daily aspects and how you can use them to work in your life, and how helpful they are to your life and what to do with that energy every day. And astrology is an archetypal language. It's an alchemical language. And so we are not subjected to the whims of the planets. Remember, we are in control of our lives at all times. It's up to you, where do you want to focus your energy? And you get what you focus on. So if you like this podcast and you want to hear more, you could subscribe at Spotify, at Apple Music, iTunes, on my website, thegoldenastrologer.com. I also have a blog where I will be putting together thoughts about the upcoming eclipses, and you can sign up for my mailing list. There's a little box that comes up when you enter my website. And then there's also my Twitter, which I haven't been on a whole lot, but it's at Deb Astrology. And please go to my YouTube channel, also The Golden Astrologer, where you'll find different videos. And there's my video for purchase about the year ahead, which you can buy on my website. And I'll give you the link to YouTube. So thank you for listening. I wish you a pleasant Memorial Day weekend if that's what you're celebrating. Otherwise, have a beautiful week, and we'll talk more about the eclipses next week. Have a good night.